Yeah. Hello.
Hello, happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
Hey,
Hello. Hello.
Sending Hendrik.
let's wait like one more minute before we start. Okay, welcome to the Solo Action community meeting. So let us start with correcting topics. Does anybody has topics for today?
I have one question, but maybe let's leave it for the end of the meeting. If other topics, if people got other topics, I'm willing to wait.
I'm here to listen in.
Yeah, I have one topic concerning the not action issue.
Okay. So I would have a topic instead of where it's hosted, where in what repo it will be at the end. I would like to share what we did in Docker the last weeks to provide something similar we have with the action, but Docker based on your local machine. That would be my topic I would like to share. So maybe Jesse, we start with your topic.
Yeah,
So I know you're working on trying to move it to Node. So maybe you can give a short introduction because that's all I know, to be fair.
yeah. So according to the issue that came up with clean up stuff, you decided that we go in for not actions, and that's what I'm trying to implement. And I have tried to do a couple of simple stuff and I was able to change the action to utilize the Node.js. But right now the only issue I'm facing is concerning the codacy analysis, and I have quite tried a couple of ways to certify its complaints, but it keeps on popping out more. So I don't know if anyone can maybe give me a review and maybe refer me to where can can go and read more on how to fix such uh such errors.
Can you so can you show it? What are those
Yeah,
errors?
yeah. I'm going to share my screen.
Okay.
So currently, if I go to the actions, right now, if you look at the actions concerning the tests, they pass they pass successfully, but the only tests that are failing are concerning the codacy. And if I go to and I choose one here. Yeah, so I've been trying to figure out ways, cause what I saw that it is always complaining about, you know, sometimes you have to be more specific and explicit in error handling and type inferences and stuff. And I've been trying to like change out. If you see in my recent commits, I've been trying to like change the way I'm doing. I'm like naming methods and doing error handling. You can see here I'm also in the poster.js. Sorry, this is the build. This is the build file I want to, the one that is not built. Yeah, this one. I made it long as I started like calling the self execution with all the like the error handling and stuff, but still I'm getting the same errors. And I don't know, maybe it's something related, or maybe there's a documentation I can read about this. And maybe it is something that is more specific about Hiero, and maybe like the way you do your like your code and stuff. So maybe
Yeah,
if it's
okay.
something very specific, I can read about
Yeah. Okay.
and see how I
So
can.
good. So it's more about the warning of the
Yeah,
codacy
yeah,
code analytics.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah, I'm not a
yeah.
TypeScript developer, so I cannot help much here. I would do like, yeah, okay, let's have a look at exactly those, Google it and see what it says. But independent of those checks, I mean, those are warning no errors, right? So is
Yeah.
this version that you now have here, is it doing the same that the composed action did, or is it now only because we had some time ago this discussion where you said, yeah, you cannot like include other actions like the action we use to set up kind, the action we use to set up all the other things here, and that this is a problem. So is that solved? So do we now have one action that you can use and that does everything, or how is that now set up?
Yeah, so I created that two actions, and if you see this one here, this one is the one responsible for like installing kind Java and stuff, and it is a
Yeah,
composite action. And
yeah.
then the main action is actually at the root here. Okay, this one, and this one is the one that that checks out the node environment and yeah, runs the actual
Okay, so
tests.
this is and this is now oh, can you go back? So this is having input outputs makes sense, and now all that is removed.
Yeah,
And what
and then
so it now says okay, use node 20. But can you scroll down? So this now is not saying before running me, run all the other things. So when you go into workflows and validation, can you go into this validation? And so how does this looks now?
yeah,
Okay.
so
Here you call first this setup env, yeah, and that is my problem. I mean, now it looks way better here instead of doing everything step by step here. But
yeah,
what we have now is we now have two actions you need to call in a workflow. And my assumption is, and I did a short Googling about it, I have not found a good solution. So my assumption is the action that we want to have at the end is looking like this. So do first A, then do B, but this feels like having two action, wrap them in another action, which would end in having three actions in total. And this sounds a little bit wrong to me. So
yeah.
Roger, do you have or Andrew any knowledge on that?
Sorry, I was looking at some stuff in the Rust SDK. Wasn't
No
listening
problem.
here.
No problem.
Can you repeat?
Yeah, so the point is like that. In the composite action, we had one action and where we used like action for the kind action to set up kind, an action for I don't know, to set up Java, an action to set up all the things, to set up Python, so all the things that are needed, which has the benefits by using the official kind action. At the end, it was already removed, right? So this kind action has a post step that removes kind. So if you have it on a self-hosted runner, you do not have the problem that, you know, after running it once, you still have things on your system. And while we can do this now for our action that we create here, or that Jesse currently tries to port to TypeScript or Node-based, we can now set up our own post section to, for an example, after everything has been done, remove the network we set up and things like that. The problem is that when you have a node action, you cannot, like you were able in a composite action, call steps before before your action, you know? So what we have now, as you can see on screen in this validation workflow that we use as, you know, an example and test everything, we need to call two actions. One is the Hiero solo action, and the other one is this stupid setup env action that creates all the things we are needing. So for me, it looks like if you run Node, you can do a post script to clean up everything, but then you can only have your action and not define other things that should be called before.
I'd have to look into that a little more. That surprises me. I haven't done too
Yeah,
much
me
with node
too.
actions in the past. But yeah, I'd have to look at that a little more.
Yeah,
I don't have a good
that
answer
would
for
be
you.
really nice. Yeah, because my assumption would be creating a node action has all you can do with a composite action, but more. You know, that was my assumption. And currently it looks like you can do at some points more stuff, but on other points it's limited.
Yeah, the other thing too, is that in general, we want to try and avoid creating new actions inside of a repository. So in this case, the setup environment action.yaml file can actually be consumed outside by another repository, which means that we could in theory have people consume that, if that's even like if that's not our intention. And then if we remove that in the future, we could potentially break
Yeah.
other folks. So in general, we want to avoid creating new actions inside of a repository. What we can do is we can either set up a separate repository for a new action so that we are explicitly supporting that. Or more commonly, what we'll do is we'll set up a shell script. So inside of the GitHub folder, you can create a scripts folder and then create a shell script inside of there to automate much of this. You can pass in arguments with that in order to configure it a little bit. And then that also prevents other outside folks trying to use that same shell script and creating a dependency on a repository without us knowing. They can't consume it like they can consume an actions setup environment or any other kind of action workflow. So just a general rule of thumb there.
Yeah. Agree with that, Andrew. The sad point I'm seeing here is that the actions that are we using today, like setup kind and all that, are already GitHub actions that you can use, as far as I know, in self-hosted runners, which means they remove what they have installed automatically at the end and things like that. And if we do it with a shell script, and in our node action calls a shell script that installs kind, that does this and that and that, it means we need to have scripts to remove all that at the end. And my hope was we can reuse what we are using today, so all those actions, so that we don't need to work on removing everything afterwards, you know. But maybe that's the point you need to do when working with non-composite action but node actions, because it's a lot, right? So we install Java, we install Node, we install wget, we install Python, we install kind, we install Solo. So all that is where we use external actions. Oh no, not for Solo. For Solo we do it by hand, but for everything else we use external actions, and it would be great if those take care about, you know, removing the stuff at the end they have installed.
Yeah, I mean, the other option too is to create a second workflow and then have a workflow call. So where we can use those same steps in a different workflow. It gets around the issue of creating this new composite action that potentially can be consumed by other folks. We're just trying to
Yeah.
make sure that we don't create a dependency, right? Where we have other people relying on some of our code unintentionally. And if we have people relying on our code, it makes it more challenging for us to be able to update it without potentially breaking people, especially if we don't even know that they're relying on this code. So eliminating that wherever possible, I think makes it a little bit more stable long term for us.
Yeah, I totally agree. From my point of view, the only public endpoints we should have here is the action, and this action has defined input and output parameters that are already defined in the action. And that's all which is consumable from the outside. That would be my wish here. Yeah. Okay, so we have the option to do it all by scripts on our own, which means we install the things with scripts and then throw it away at the end with scripts. I believe we can talk with Jeremy about it from the Solo team, because they now have this easy way to set up Solo. Maybe if they have an easy way to set up Solo, I ask myself if and remove everything that is created by that step should be happen in Solo, you know, so that those Solo tasks, I think it's called tasks, what they are using there, has something like, hey, install everything, and something which is like, hey, uninstall everything, instead of doing something here in the GitHub action. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, so with that, Are you still there? Oh yeah, okay. Somehow the window disappeared here. Okay. Yeah, with that, I think that is the way to go then. So Jesse, do you know how to contact Jeremy from the solo team?
Not really.
Okay, so please ping me after this meeting and I will create contact and then we can discuss what would make sense here.
Okay.
Or Roger, do you think there is a better solution and you would want to have a look?
I mean, I think that Jeremy's a good expert there. You can reach him on the Discord in either the solo channel or the solo action channel. He's
Yeah.
fairly responsive there. That would be my first line of defense there. But yeah.
Yeah, okay. I agree. Let's try that out. Good. Anything else on that action?
My question, by the way, is kind of related to this topic, so maybe I
Oh,
can
okay.
just go ahead and ask the question. So, I recently saw that the Solo team have provided some kind of a command, which is, I guess, what was it called? It was, I think it was quick start or
Yeah,
something
yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. That is
And
yeah, continue.
And one of the things that came to mind is like basically right now in the solo action, we're doing all those steps, which, for example, from the SDK point of view, we previously integrated the solo action for, let's say, optimization to our workflow. So it's not bloated with all the solo commands. And now I guess it's quite simple just to do this command. And my question is basically, um, have we thought what we're gonna build on top of uh, when we are developing the action and we have, let's say, that command provided, what are we planning to provide to users of the solo action if let's say this command provides most of the use case the most of the users would need.
Yeah. So where I totally agree is we should not re-event everything. My as said, my so no, it's not a concern. It's about what we need to make clear is whatever in a GitHub action we install, we must be able to remove so that on self-hosted runners, the GitHub action can be called multiple times, right? And our current approach where we install the things on our own and use something like the kind GitHub action to install kind as an example, give us the option to remove all that with calling run solo command. If we see it as a black box, we don't know how to remove those things. So, and again, we're here at the point, I believe if we can work with the solo team to have, hey, this is a solo command to install everything, and this is a command you can use to deinstall everything the solo command installed. If that is possible, I believe that would be the best way to go forward in that action. Call this one command, it installs everything. Then we do configuration like we do today to configure how many nodes, what should be exposed. Let's create an operator account with what key algorithm and with how many H bar, all that, and then run whatever you want to run with that action. And at the end, call this uninstall command to leave a clean system behind. I think that would be the best case for us. The question is, can we achieve that? Does it fit into the goals of the solo team and the goals of that task? Yeah, that is thank you, Roger. That is the command. Um
So I think that
yeah,
if the solo quick start single destroy actually took down the cluster and everything, that would be
yeah,
perfect.
yeah,
And that's something that I am meaning to bring up with the solo team, because it doesn't do exactly what I thought it would do when you're on destroy, and it might be that it's just not fully implemented yet. But
yeah,
I think like right now the solo quick start single deploy um, meets every expectation that the action would need. You'd have to change how you're setting the node version. Um, like I think with quick start, if you have it's a consensus node version environment variable, then the quick start command will pick that up and run with that version of the consensus nodes. So like in the Rust SDK where Georgie and I are both working, we have to use a very specific alpha version of release 60 of consensus node. Um, and you can do that either through through the solo action right now or through the quick start. Either way, um, but yeah, it's just a very small difference in implementation.
Yeah, my
yeah,
idea was basically like if we could align at some point with the solo team and the features they're currently building, because like this came out of nowhere for me, and it it's kind of changing the direction, let's say, for development of the solo action from my perspective, because currently the solo action is built upon like doing all the steps which are provided like a script, so it spins up solo. And in parallel, the solo team is working on functionalities like that, which they provide run a single command, and you have the whole environment set up. And concern was basically if at some point we were just going to duplicate a lot of work and have similar experiences provided by solo and the solo action. So the best approach for me would be like defining myself a couple of things that the solo action would provide above that functionality, like the quick start, and focus on finding stuff like that. So we provide something like a different experience or something useful for the users, and not just double spend work.
yeah. So I think the best case at the end would be if the solo action forwards the things that are needed for the action to use the solo quick start to the solo team and discuss, does that make sense for the quick start? If, you know, I mean, using this quick start would be the best because that is less complexity in the action. That is everything about installation, uninstallation, destroy, whatever is not part of the action. That is at the solo repo, not about moving, topics away. It's more about we have one place. Where is it? Um, the question we need to see is, does everything we want and the users want, does all that make sense under the quick start? Like, for an example, now Stephen from the mirror node team came up and says, I want to have a config parameter to define what version of mirror node should be used, because maybe I want a different version of mirror node than the version I use for consensus node, and things like that. And if all that fits into the solo quick start, then I totally agree with you, Georgie. Then the solo quick start would be for us the way to go. And regarding it came out of nowhere, it was same for me. But we had a lot of critical discussions the last 2 week in different directions. One of the outcome is there will be a presentation of the solo roadmap. So that people are more aware of what is planned by Solo, what should be in Solo, what should be maybe in a GitHub action, maybe in a Docker container, and so on and so on.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point to bring up, Hendrik. That presentation will be happening. I think it's this week or next week. I don't remember exactly. But that'll be really great to see from the Solo team. But I would also like to just point out, like, we have the Solo community Discord channel in our Hiero Discord, as well as on the internal Slack, where people are very active and very responsive. And so if there's questions about what Solo can do, it's there. And then there's also the Solo Docs website you guys know about, solo.hiero.org, that is, in my opinion, pretty thorough about what's enabled and what's not enabled. And it just doesn't have the roadmap on it, but that would be good to see. It has some to-dos in there. So you can see some of what they're planning on doing.
Yeah, the roadmap is missing here, right? I totally agree. This documentation is good because, I mean, without that documentation, we would not have been able to create the action at all, right? So, totally agree with you that this is a quite good one. And if we get something like a roadmap or something like that into it, that would be really great. Because, I mean, you don't look for each and every release happens from Zoro into the docs to see what have changed. Is there a new line somewhere, you know? So I think that is what would be really good if we then have a roadmap and have a basic understanding when what topics move forward. Do you know, Roger? I mean, having a new solo version can end in having a new or needing a new kind version, needing a new whatever Helm version, needing a new Kubernetes version from the API perspective. Do you know if the quick start action takes care about it? Like when I update Solo on my machine and I use the quick start action before and call it again, if things like that are already in it to check like, oh, do I have the right version or do I need to update some of my dependencies?
I believe it will update them for you starting with the next release of Solo.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
Yeah.
Right now, you have to do. I mean, it'll tell you the dependencies once you run a Solo command and it fails. Um, but yeah, I think right now you still have to install kind separately from it, but their goal is just to be able to do like an npx run Solo quick start,
Okay.
and it should install the dependencies for you and everything, so that you don't have to fuss about hunting for those things.
All right.
And I believe that Jeremy and Nathan were telling me that was coming down with 42, but I'd like to get some confirmation of that.
Yeah, because that would be quite important for the action when it's run on self-hosted runners too, right? Having that. Yeah, but that's good to know. Okay. Any other questions on that topic? Good.
I think I'm good.
So then we have as a second topic, let me just prepare something for that so that I can show it. Give me a second. Jeremy just asked me something. Yeah. So his question was, it fitted quite good to what I wanted to show here, because I don't know if you have seen it, but I created a proposal for this Docker container to do the same as the GitHub Action does, but in Docker. And the Solo team believes that this is something that should stay in the Solo repo instead of having another project. And that created some discussion. And for people who have seen it, with all that discussion, we will not move it forward, right? Because that was the question Jeremy just had. So I believe we should solve all these discussions first, however it is solved at the end, and then move it forward once we know where it should be placed. So let me check. I had a sample. That was using. Here we go. So let me share my screen. Oh no, I need to open the Hiero Solo action with the. Yeah, okay. So let me share my screen now. Okay, so what we have done is that we created. Let me remove the chat and let me remove you. So because otherwise I do not see anything here. So what we have done, we created a prototype in the Hiero Solo action repo, where you can find a local repo that contains a prototype to setting up everything that the Hiero Solo action does in a Docker container. And the prototype has a README that gives a quite good overview about how to use it. It has some input parameters that can already be set, as you can see here. But in general, what it does is when I go into this local folder, what I can do here is I can, based on the Docker file that is here and based on the other scripts in that folder, I can build a Docker image. And it looks like my Docker is not running. Give me a second. Maybe I killed it some time ago. Engine running, okay. So let's try it again. Okay, so I can build this image, first of all, which I was assuming takes no time because I already built it, but it looks like it takes some time because he's rebuilding it right now. Maybe I thrown away everything after my last usage. So sorry for the delay, but it took like 1 minute or 2 minutes, and then the image is built. And this is nothing you normally need to do, right? So our idea is in future we have deployed that image or whatever image we will have to run integration tests based on Hiero against. It will be at Docker Hub or something. So what you will do is you will just start a Docker container based on that name, which is currently named Hiero/SoloRunner, but that's how it's in the README. It could be named however you want to name it. And what we do now, after we build it, we will start it. So this is the starting command for Docker. That makes this maybe bigger, the terminal, because now it's getting interesting. Because what you're seeing now here is if you ever used Solo or ever worked with the Solo action, that is something you will be familiar with because it now installs all the things it's set up. Or no, it's already installed, right? So what it does now, it set up the cluster that is used to run Solo inside. And like the GitHub action, this now takes some time, like 2 minutes or something. And once it's done, I can locally on my machine execute any unit tests or integration tests, whatever I want to execute against the network running in Docker, and check if my library, my SDK, my application, whatever code I just changed works as expected. The nice one with the Docker setup is once the Docker container is started running, you can just keep it running for a whole day. You don't need to restart it, and then you can directly call tests against it, right? So the thing, like for the GitHub action that we have, what this container will return to us is an account that is created with a given private and public key. So what you see here is like from the last time I started it, the private and public key. So what we will do now is wait until it's done, and then the account address is always the same. Put in the new generated private key here, and once we have it, I just have here, so this is not a test, this is really just a main that sends an account create transaction to the network to create an account. And when I start it now, you will see that it will fail. Why is that working? Give me a second. Is the network already there at that point? Maybe the network is already there. And, that is interesting. Why is that working? That fails, right? Oh, looks like I have another problem here because even that is working. Give me a second. Create operator account, create it with that operator, create a public key. Huh. Why is that working? It uses this one. It uses this one. It uses this I key and then do a send and wait. Oh, I all the time execute sample one. Sample one is configured to go against testnet. That's the problem here. Sample two. Yeah, and you see network closed for unknown reason because at the moment the network is not available. So we will wait until the network is there. And once it's there, we can execute the transaction against it.
Just one
While we are
question.
waiting, any questions on that?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask one.
Yeah.
So, so we can assume that even if this whole functionality is in the Docker container, we can again access all the needed ports like mirror node ports and other
Yeah.
stuff. I guess
Yeah.
they're exposed on how
Yeah.
they're usually exposed. Like, for example, the mirror node on 5.5 something.
Yeah, so currently only mirror node, only consensus node is export because the problem is um, the best. So I'm not a Kubernetes expert. I can only tell you what the person who had a look at it and based on all the Kubernetes stuff made that possible. And she told me that, oh, and here you see our account, right? And she told me that the big problem is that to make this work in a really good way, currently it looks like it's a kind of workaround that is used today to make it really dynamic and configure all the ports and so on. What we need is to have the Helm chart of Solr open source, which is currently not available open source, and then you can configure exactly that to configure the ports and how those ports should be exposed to your local system. So at the moment, it's the port of consensus node that is hard-coded exported to my local system that I can use by localhost, and then the common port that the Hiero Solr action used for that too. And as you can see, so let's have a look. We now have the account, we have a private key, and we have a public key. And if I go here, let's first of all use this key, which is wrong, right? So let's execute it again. Don't I get an?
And another thing, so this won't be limited, for example, to having like one node. For example, if you use the SDK and create a node create, update, and the other dynamic address book functionalities, we can assume they're working, right?
I have not tested that. As said, this is a prototype currently, right? So what is that? That is now a netty program here with the SDK. Let me switch to another project. Then we can do it there. Give me a second. Let's see.
I ask you because the SDK started using Solo for the simple reason of at some point migrating and using dynamic address book functionality. So uh, for the other use case like local end-to-end testing, and for 99% of our cases, we just use the local node in our local environment, but it's gonna be a good addition to be able to use the dynamic address book functionalities as well.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
otherwise, I think still most of SDK developers are using local node. I think it's maybe planned to be deprecated, but it's still maintained, and most of the guys are still using it. Just wanted to point that out.
Yeah. And so let me share again because now it's working. And again, I mean, all that functionality, once we have it, we can add on top, right? So I mean, we couldn't be at the point where we say, hey, we have the first running version where we can access a consensus node. So here I have a test. And what this test does is it takes the string hello Hiero, gets it into bytes, create file transaction against the network, get back a file ID, then read the content from that file ID, which is a file read transaction against the network, get the content, and then approve that both are the same. If I just start it, it ends with an error because what I have not done now, and it ends with an invalid signature error, because in the properties, what I have not done is I have not changed the private key since the last time I tested it. So let's remove that private key and put in the private key that we just got here from the Docker script. And if I put it inside, and we start it. Now we see its screen and we see here transactions are running, and to see that it's really working, we can do like this, and now it should fail because now we get back something else from the servers than we would say. And what you can see, it's even way faster than working with the GitHub action, because it's now all in this machine, everything directly executed here, or running against testnet and all that. And let's see if I can just run all of it. So maybe there are tests that include mirror node that will then be read. But as you can see, a lot of transactions are executed here, and all of them are green. And all of them are executed now against this Docker container that is running on my machine. It will still work if I go offline, but then you would not see it anymore because then I need to stop Zoom, you know? So that's the current state here. And if I kill the Docker container, everything is gone, and I could start with a new setup. Any questions on that?
I am good.
I still have a few, but I don't know how to word them quite yet. So I want to revisit it still. But I mean, I like it as a test framework. I just don't know yet that I see the benefit of having it separated still. And I don't know if you want to
Separated from-
revisit that conversation here, and that's fine.
Yeah, that is yeah. I tried to avoid the conversation here and try to concentrate on the functionality, because I assume from a functionality perspective we all agree that
Yeah.
this is something we want to have, right?
Yeah, it'd be
And
great.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I guess for me, I'm using the solo quick start locally and just setting up a few environment variables beforehand. And for me, that gets me my entire solo environment where I can then go forward and do whatever testing I need to do locally. But like, and I get the deployment I need, and I can just use the solo commands as documented to get all the information that we need, like the operator keys and everything like that.
And I
So
believe
I'm
for a lot of
losing some of the benefit of it in my head, and that's where I'm at.
yeah, but you're an expert user, right? So I
Nope.
mean,
Not at all.
I would say yes. I would say yes, because you work in the ecosystem every day. You know the projects. For you, it's fine to have all of that installed on your machine, and you have an idea what all that is. But I believe a person that comes first time to a hackathon of Hedera, a person that wants to create a JavaScript application, he or she has no idea about all that, and having, hey, you need to run Docker, they know it from maybe already started a database, from doing whatever, and then they can relate on Hiero like, oh yeah, that's the same as setting up a database. I can use Docker. There's a GitHub action. There's all that. I think that is what we should have at the end. To be sure, still have the possibility to do it as you do it for people who really want to go deeper.
I think that's fair. Yeah, and the rest of it's just the other conversation that I don't think we need to have here.
Yeah. We don't need to have that one here. I said, Jeremy, I will travel next week, and I said, let me travel, and when I'm back, we will continue that conversation. And I mean, we already discussed several points in this meeting, right? About the quick start, what for the GitHub action is needed for the quick start, and things like that. And so I believe all that helps to let Solo and the projects we are creating here move more together, you know?
Yeah,
So
and so I think yeah, I agree. It'd be really good to have at least a subset of the people on this call on the solo community call as well, and just
yeah.
having that open stream there, I think would be really helpful.
Yeah, I hope I can do the next one. Somehow there's always a conflict when the solo call happens for me. But maybe I need to solve that conflict somehow. So a timing conflict, right? Not a different conflict.
Yeah, no, I get you.
Yeah,
Uh,
Schedules are schedules. It's super
yeah,
fine.
exactly. So okay, we have 4 minutes left. Anything else?
by the way, just for the last topic, uh, it seems reasonable to me. Why don't we have something like, I don't know, maybe a survey of some kind, how like people would like to use that function, and maybe post it development channels and community channels and answer a lot of questions because right now some of the SDK developers are using local node, some are using solo,
Yeah, yeah.
others would be potentially using the solo action with the Docker script, and yeah, maybe it should be an easier uh, it would be easier just to ask everyone how they want to use it and not
Mhm.
have that conversation.
I think that's a good idea. Actually, I don't know if it makes sense to do it now because for some people this topic is currently emotional, and but in general, asking the community what they want, what they need, and how to use it is, from my point of view, the right direction to go. And actually, that is where this is coming from, right? Because people told me how to debug it, how to start it, and things like that. Um, but where I totally agree with you is creating a survey, especially we have Sophie here in the meeting. She did it for the Python SDK. So I like to have those kind of surveys to get feedback and to understand is it used at all, or how the community want to use it, what functionality are needed in general. And I think we're at a point where it makes sense to do it. Servers should be developed in a yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you, Roger, on that. And so what I always like is to do an initial pitch, like an initial proof of concept, like we now have with a container, and move forward from that with the community. And for me, when I did it, it was clear that it's a project. I learned not all people believe that. So this is now something we need to discuss as a community with the community in total. And when I talk about community, I try to never exclude anybody. So your team should be included totally here. Yeah. Good. So I need to switch to the next meeting. See you all somewhere at any Hiero community topic the next days. Thanks for your input, first of all, and see you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Right.